From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Like, man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
And now I'm just hanging on, looking at the wall, like flying this way. And I'm like, oh man, I got to let go of this thing at some point.
And then there's one that could literally pick you up.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah.
That's called a helicopter.
Well,
and the last lap was just chaos. I mean, like 4 wide, 5 wide, dive bombing.
If you land it and send it into the fence, you're probably not going to get hurt. Bounce and then this insane roll, the car that Keegan was in. I mean, I don't know, it's the shape of the Beetle or what, but that thing sent it.
So I was the supercharger specialist on my old man's car with
Specialist?
Yeah, it sounds cooler than crew guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Alexander Rossi.
I'm Cruz Pedregon.
I'm Chris Windom, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're here in Speedway, Indiana with the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. I'm Ken Stout. Rico Elmore sitting alongside the track dude back behind the controls. And there's only 7 of them in history that have won the USAC Triple Crown. And we've got one of them sitting in the studio with us here today. Welcome to the show there, Mr. Chris Windom. Nice to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice stuff, dude. You've had quite a successful run in the open-wheeled world, if you will, in terms of midgets and Silver Crown, and of course sprint cars, and now on to wing cars. Had some success last year behind the wheel of the wing cars. Things are going well.
Yeah, it's been a crazy transition. You know, I've spent most of my career in non-wing racing, and you know, winning the Triple Crown and winning a lot of high-profile non-wing midget Silver Crown events. So you know, the wing transition was something I've wanted to do the last few years, and luckily have had an opportunity to do it with some good people and a great sponsor with NOS Energy Drink supporting me to do it.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, so the transition over, I've heard, you know, there's very few that can do it, both in great places. I mean, you, of course, Tyler, you know, Brady Bacon. I mean, so it takes a certain talent to do it. But one of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about you coming on was what the midget fields today versus the midget fields 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of difference, I feel like. You know, when I started running midgets when I was a little younger, it was all, you know, USAC champions of either sprint cars, Silver Crowns. I started with Levi Jones and Jerry Coons and Tracy Hines, Dave Darlin, Brian Clausen. And now it's just, you know, it's just different. You know, it's a lot of rent-a-ride stuff with kids that have not had a lot of experience, and you know, there's a lot of crashes. It's at the end of the day. So it's a whole different type of racing now. It's wide open. You know, balls to the walls. Do whatever you can to win the race, and everyone's kind of had to adapt to that. And you know, I've done the same stuff. So you know, it's different.
Yeah, and that's. Are you still running any of the midget stuff?
I'm going to still do probably 4 Crown and a few of the bigger, probably the IMS show with Chad Boat and CB Industries. So, yeah, not a lot, but whenever I can fit them in.
Yeah, Boat's got good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
He was a good driver, but I think he's become a better car owner.
Yeah, I think that he's enjoyed doing it too. You know, he doesn't even have desire to really race anymore, so he's definitely a good car owner.
I heard a great story with Sammy and him at the Chili Bowl a couple of years ago where Sammy was overlooking at Boat stuff, and Chad, which I commend, said to him, well, why don't you just take a picture?
He did. I was standing right there. Chad never really shows emotion or gets mad, but so it was pretty funny to hear him say
for him
that.
to say that. I was like, wow, that's strong, you know. And then
did Sammy have anything?
Sammy said, how about I take that silver spoon and ram it right up here, and I'll let you finish the rest of it.
Yeah, that happened.
Did he really?
Yeah, that's exactly how that went down.
Yeah.
Sammy doesn't hold back. I give him that, dude.
But I loved it that Boat said it, right? I mean, because I was like, you know, it's like, I mean, and you guys, I mean, strong stuff, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
the
sure.
stuff that he runs, but yeah, that was like my highlight of the Chili Bowl that year. It was like Chad Boat.
That is pretty funny. I did not hear that. I heard what you were saying there with the young guns coming up through the midget ranks now, and going back to short course off road. I would watch the kids come up through the trophy carts, and then they would come into a class called Pro Light Trucks, and they would do the same thing. they would just crash and bang and bash because they were allowed to do that in the trophy carts. I always felt like they needed to teach them in the trophy carts not to drive that way. And then when they got up to the bigger trucks, they felt invincible because the trucks were bigger, they had the full cages, had all this protection, and so they went out there and drove the way that they had been racing the past 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how long they were in it. But the fact that they can just get into a car and a lot of times not pay a price for it. You can go out there, crash the car. There's always another one sitting there. And the Arrive and Drive program, it's not that way for everybody. Some people are barely scrapping, to get into a car, and those kids are going to drive a little bit differently. But there's a number of them that just have no fear.
No, and my philosophy on it too is not only were the drivers kind of different back when I started, we also went to tracks that there were big repercussions if you drove like that. When you're at Belleville, Knoxville, Eldora, all those half miles and you wreck,
there's a price to pay.
You're probably not going to get back in a car that night. So
I watched Hagen get lifted up out of Eldora there.
Yeah,
I think on a couple of occasions.
Yeah,
so.
Now it's primarily short track.
Yeah, and you mentioned one in there where we lost a really good friend of all
exactly.
of ours. So,
yeah, we all know what happened there. But now I feel like it's prominently short tracks and micro tracks, and that's where those kids come straight out of a micro into a midget at the same racetrack they just raced at, and you can wreck a lot easier at those places and just jump back in and go again. But when you were running Knoxville and those big tracks in Eldora, it wasn't like that.
He's a seasoned veteran, the seventh person to win the Triple Crown. 7-time Triple Crown winner. That'd be pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Chris Windom in the studio with us. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Probably one of the toughest events to be a part of for a driver, and preparation, just everything that goes into it. 500 laps in a sprint car is grueling.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach, innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Chris Windom in the studio with us, a 2-time Little 500 winner that goes on in Anderson, Indiana. I was ridiculed just a moment ago off the air, by the way, and rightfully so. But a big race to win, a very tough race to win. They start them off 3 wide, just like they do the 500 here. Goes on during that same weekend. You've had the pleasure of winning that thing twice, man. That's a tough deal. A lot of laps to be running a sprint car.
Yeah, that's probably one of the toughest events to be a part of for a driver, and preparation, just everything that goes into it. 500 laps in a sprint car is grueling, and you can't even really stand up afterwards. But like you said, to win it twice is pretty cool. The first time I got to do it when I was still running with my family car, and so doing that with my family and my dad was awesome to get that first win. And then obviously the second one was with Jason Gocher and his team. So. It's not an easy race to win. It's damn near impossible to win. So to do it twice, and now I think Cody Swanson's done it. Obviously, that stretch that Eric Gordon went on back in the day is crazy. Because first time I won it, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't imagine doing it 9 times or 10 times in a row, whatever he did.
Yeah, and he was no spring chicken there towards the end of that run either.
Yeah, he's actually who I had to pass to win my first one. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a bulldog, man. He's a tough dude for sure. And the refueling of the cars is quite an orchestration that goes on in the middle of that race.
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking, I'm sure, especially for those guys actually doing it. But yeah, they're like old, almost like IndyCar fuel rigs is how they've kind of rigged them up.
I mean, nerve-wracking for them. What about you? You're sitting in the car.
I try to just imagine it's not really happening right behind my head.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. I was like, that's far more nerve-wracking for me getting the shower down the back.
Right. You're strapped in the car. You can't see the flame.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and all it has to do is hit a rotor.
Yep, that's right.
And it's on for the fans at home. If you're not familiar with it, the sprint cars run on methanol. Yep. You can't see the flame. It's a very, very faint yellow if you can see anything at all. Right. And if it flashes up while they're refueling these cars, and I don't think there's any other race where they really refuel a sprint car while you guys. Well, I guess they do at Knoxville now, right? They refuel, but everybody's shut off.
Yeah,
and
you're
it's
down
much
in the
more
pit.
controlled.
Exactly.
You're not trying to do it as fast as possible and push back out.
I don't think there's any.
No, that's
nothing.
But I know that's
little
it.
500 because Knoxville they don't ever run that far. I mean, they may go out under a red or something and the usual deal, but the way they do it with the quick connect and all that, and it's I mean, praise God that nothing's happened, but man, I'm telling you, it is a recipe.
Well, it is a true pit stop as we know it, as fast as you can get it done. And what I've heard from a couple of people, a couple of players inside of the race is the key is the push truck.
Yep.
And I hear the guys that drive the push trucks can make a pretty good living there that night.
I know
if they're
for
on
sure
the take a little bit, maybe we'll push your car a little quicker.
Yeah, there's been some behind the scenes stuff I know that's gone on with the push truck drivers. So, yeah, it's crazy. You know, when I first started doing it, you were still using just a normal jack and trying to do a pit stop, and they're obviously not near as fast as a NASCAR jack or anything, but now all the guys have air jacks, and it's so advanced on what they've done with that race and everything.
They have air jacks on the car?
Yeah, we had air jacks the year we won.
Really?
Yep.
So they just plug in the air?
Yeah, you come in, plug in the air, and
When you said air jacks, I figured somebody went over in the back, you know, like something mounted to the tail and popped
No,
up
we had them on the car during the whole race.
I'm surprised they do that because those things are fairly heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy, but I feel like the risk reward for how heavy they are is still fast. Your pit stop's so much faster doing it that way.
So how much neck strength do you have to have for that, or is your head pinned?
Yeah, I would say neck strength is probably one of the top things that obviously your seat is fitted to you, so you're still pinned, but it still wears you out. And really, sitting in a sprint car is not the most comfortable thing in the world. You try to make it as comfortable as possible, but I've always noticed my butt going numb and my legs going numb is the hardest thing to get used to, because when you're strapped in that tight, sitting straight up and down, you know, you're not lean back and comfortable like you would be in a stock car. So that's the toughest thing, is just trying to relax and not tense up, because if you tense up, it's impossible to.
Just a few beers beforehand.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
Get out there and run 500 laps.
Get some feeling in your butt anyways. You know, he was talking about you lean your head over a little bit. My son ran wing car for Davey Hamilton on the asphalt there for a bit, and certainly you can attest to this. I mean, Anderson isn't the smoothest track on the planet. Putting your head over the headrest, I mean, it creates quite a vibration. That's a really short track over there as well. You know, maybe if you're on a 5/8 or something, you've got a little bit of rest time, but you guys are in a turn almost instantly, so there's really not much rest time, and I just don't see you. I mean, maybe you can take some of the pressure off when you're going through the turn a little bit if you can relax that much, but you're pretty much holding it up the whole time, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the only time you're really resting is caution, you know, when you can kind of relax a little more. But yeah, you're like you said, you're in a corner every 2 seconds after you're on a straightaway, so you're just going wherever the G-forces are taking you at that point after 100 laps into that thing. Where did you start? I think the first year, I want to say I came from the third row both years, so I didn't lead the first year. I actually went a lap down with 90 to go because I passed the pace car, and my dad.
So they didn't like that.
No, my dad was on the radio telling me to do it. I knew not to do it, but I did it anyway. So we were fighting under caution before we went back greens. I knew we were screwed at that point. So I had to unlap myself, come back around, and pass for the lead. I think with I don't know what it was, 9 or 10 laps to go. So yeah, with less than 100 to go, I was.
You had to unlap yourself. So you just pulled over, let everybody go back by.
I restarted past the entire field and came back around and passed them again to win. Yeah.
And not the pace car.
Yeah, we did a late pit stop, so we had fresher tires than a lot of guys, I think, at that point. So that's huge there.
I love it. Used to see your old man at the races all the time. Still around? Still going to a lot of them?
Yeah, he doesn't go to as near as many. He retired and moved to Nashville, where my family and nephews are at. So he's got a fishing boat down there and does that, but he still comes to quite a few of them.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when you came out. I remember the family car.
Yep,
so
yep.
It's pretty awesome.
Speaking of when he came out, we're going to ask Chris how he got started here in the business when we come back. Stay with us.
You know, there was a lot of good competition. I remember in Daytona, there was 120 karts in my class, and it was, just something to even make the race.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. We're here in Speedway, Indiana on the Skinny. We have Chris Windom in the studio with us here today. Quite an accomplished open-wheel driver, but didn't start off at the top. How did it all start off? We were talking about the kids and the micros a little bit earlier. Were you doing that when you were young?
Yeah, I actually started racing go-karts when I was 7 years old. of my home track in Spoon River Speedway, which I'm actually promoting an all-star race there this year, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, my dad raced flat track motorcycles, and so when I was a kid, I rode motorcycles around the yard a lot, but he wouldn't let me do that. He got hurt really bad doing that, so he put me in a go-kart, and shoot, by the time I was 9 or 10, we were traveling around the entire country racing go-karts. It was kind of almost the same schedule as now. I remember starting in Florida at Daytona in February, and we'd go all the way out to the state of Washington to race, Nebraska, all over the place. So, you know, I got used to traveling at a pretty young age, and when we moved up into the micros and did that around here, actually, Logan Sport, Circus City, I think the other track is in Peru, and did that primarily around Indiana. And I think I got in my first sprint car. I practiced a sprint car when I was 15.
So when you say go-kart, was it all oval, or were you doing?
Yep, all oval. I did a couple road course races, but primarily all oval dirt.
Because you mentioned Daytona, and I know that's a big happening. WKA Manufacturers Cup goes on.
Yep.
I mean, all those families spend Christmas and New Year's down there in Daytona, but they also have an oval track down there as well.
That's where we were at. We did the dirt oval track down there. Yep.
Yeah, that enduro, the enduro race that they have at the big speedway.
Oh, out on the big track.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes on so they have the sprint track,
right,
road course, and then they have the enduro where the guys are laid down, and they got the twins, and I don't know, I think they're 150 miles an hour or something.
They're 100 way too much.
The guy that owns Margay Chassis, Keith Freeber's asked me to come do that the last few years, and I haven't done it, but it probably would be kind of cool to do.
It is. I mean, it certainly looks cool. But
the other one, if you want to do something, you know, Sumo, our buddy, Tony and I's buddy, Sumo has the one with the 450 on it.
Oh, Superkart.
Superkart. Outrageous.
Dude, they're
outrageously crazy. And he built one for Tony. Tony loved it so much. Tony hasn't drove it, so we'll get somebody in it that wants to have some fun.
Yeah, and I know they had that tour. I don't know where they all go, but I know one of the stops is Road America. I mean, and they are just ripping.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Yeah, the ones that he's run, that 450 is all dirt. The stuff that they run
on the dirt.
So it's really wild. But yeah, I a few pounds ago and many years ago, I used to run go-karts. So so your dad raced flat track. Where did AMA?
Yeah, he ran AMA. He ran a 750 Harley. He actually did it professionally.
The miles? Did he?
He did all the miles. The Coin, Springfield. I know they used to go to Ascot, and he actually
Indy.
Indy.
Yeah.
He got hurt really bad at the Peoria TTs, which is flat track bikes, but they have, you know, little jumps, and it's kind of it's not a flat track, but yeah, so he did that.
Yeah, there's a couple little elements in it. Yeah, super cool to watch.
Yeah, yep.
That's what Mario Todd used to do.
Yeah.
Did they ever compete?
We talked about that before, me and JR, and I think that they know who each other are, but I think that Mario was around the Ohio region more, and I don't think my dad was over there that much.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They raced at the same time, though.
Chris Carr did.
Oh, I loved Chris Carr. I used to go and watch him all the time.
I did those shows for a season with Chris Carr, and I mean, to this day, same way. He's just one of those, like a Mario Andretti, you know, just so hungry. And I remember him saying, I think it was at DeCoin, where he said, man, they pass you on the outside. And you can't let somebody get on the outside of you in DeCoin. He said, so when I ran down the straightaway, he said, I'd hang the handlebar out over the fence so they couldn't get outside of me.
Yeah, those guys are insane.
What a nut.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a horrible idea.
Yeah, but nobody got on the outside of him.
Yeah, guarantee it.
Unless you're up in the fence.
Right.
But I like it when they're on the throttle. They've got the throttle just mashed and their hands down beside the tank.
Yeah, and they get in a big draft.
They get in a big draft. You see them, moving around. I'm like,
oh, the things are all over the place. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, they
racing.
are cool.
But it would be safer in a go-kart. So I guess if you were going to get something safe,
I probably
not
took
a lot safer, but I mean it's definitely safer.
Right.
So.
So good times. A lot of racecraft learned in those early days.
Yeah, I feel like it. You know, getting to do the go-kart stuff with a lot of really good guys. I raced with Trevor Bain, Landon Castle. A lot of guys went the stock car route, and I went this route. But there was a lot of good competition. I remember in Daytona there was 120 karts in my class, and it was just something to even make the race, kind of like a chili bowl almost. So yeah, I learned a lot doing that, and then being able to transition into a micro and getting in a sprint car so young. It's kind of crazy to think how many years ago it was when I actually first got in a sprint car. But yeah, I feel like it's definitely helped me a lot.
It wasn't as common to see somebody that young get into a sprint car. I mean, now, today, you hear about it all the time, 13-year-olds climbing in a car. But
yeah, I think when, my era in that time, it was Brian Clausen was just on the national USAC tour when I first got into it, and I was kind of the only other young kid. And then Chad Boat started around the same. He was only 13, I think, when he got in a sprint car, though, so that's pretty crazy. But yeah, definitely. There was not many kids my age at that point in time, and now, like you said, it's just the most common. There's just as many kids that age as there are veterans, I feel like.
Yeah, where did Larson? When was he? I was trying.
I know
to
he
think.
started young too in a wing car in California.
I mean, he was 15. Well, yeah, definitely a lot younger than when he came out here.
Yeah, I think he was 16 or 17 when he came out here.
Yeah.
So.
The early days there for Mr. Chris Windom on how he got started in this racing industry. When we come back, we'll ask him what it's like to run a stock car.
I actually was running second coming off turn 4 to the checkered, and me and Brandon McReynolds ran out of fuel together running first and second. So, yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah, that went from being a huge moment when I was very young still then to kind of everybody kind of forgot about it because we wrecked.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Chris Windom with us here today. Has a number of starts in the big cars as well. Ran some ARCA stuff, also NASCAR Camping World Trucks, and 2021 made his Cup debut at Bristol, albeit on the dirt, but pretty cool all in all. They were driving for Rick Ware, I believe, at the time. Talk to me about the stock car stuff. I heard you say before that Trevor Bain and a couple of those other guys that you were running karts with back when you first started went that late model route, if you will. You decided to go open wheel. Was it based financially or based on financials, I should say?
I don't think so. It just, honestly, I don't really remember what the decision was to go to a micro. I think we probably met some people in the go-kart world, or because I'm from Illinois, and Indiana was obviously a hotbed for micros, so it was close, and that's just kind of the route we took. But yeah, I did get to run some stock car stuff, and I think my first race was at Daytona in 2012 in the ARCA series, and I actually was running second coming off turn 4 to the checkered, and me and Brandon McReynolds ran out of fuel together running first and second. So, yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah, that went from being a huge moment when I was very young still then to kind of everybody kind of forgot about it because we wrecked. So yeah, went from going from the lead off 4 to crashing and running out of fuel.
Yeah, you were 20 years old? 19,
yeah, I think
20?
it was 19, yeah.
Yeah.
So you run out of fuel, it just stopped it dead. I mean,
yeah.
So your grip was gone, it shot you,
yeah,
right?
we knew it was going to be really close because I think we pitted like the first couple guys, and we were teammates, so we got back through the field, and we were running out. There was a late caution. I think actually Chris Buescher spun out and made it go to an overtime for ARCA, and
so it's his fault.
Yeah, it is. I'm still pissed about it. Yeah, no, but yeah, it.
I could have won the Daytona 500.
we knew
second.
Yeah, we knew we weren't gonna probably make it, but we made it further than I thought and came off 4, and it finally ran out.
Whose car was that? The ARCA car?
The Wintron. They were with. In with Turner Motorsports, I think that's who it was back then. But Wintron was the team, and Kevin Zawinski, I think, was the main car owner, and Mark Rett was working on our car and McReynolds' car. I think that's who Frankie Muniz's crew chief is now. So, yeah, it was a cool deal.
So what was it like to be out there on the speedway and feel the car moving around in the air, feeling the draft? I mean, all that stuff brand new to you if you're making a debut there. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, when I tested and practiced and qualified there by myself most of the time, and it's not hard to drive around Daytona in a stock car if you're by yourself, but once you get into the draft and you can't see anything in front of you is when it starts to get difficult, for sure.
You know, I saw some people, Pastrana, of course, at Daytona.
That's exactly what I was getting ready
You
to
know,
talk about.
and I saw a number of people beat him up. Oh, it just because he finished 11th. Oh, it just goes to show you don't have to have any talent to go out there and do that kind of driving. Well, first of all, anybody that thinks Travis Pastrana doesn't have any talent, I got news for you. But
Yeah.
if you think it's easy to go 197 miles an hour, nose to tail, inches with cars all around you, and as you said, I mean, I constantly think about it, the lack of vision. There's probably no words to describe the lack of vision that those drivers have.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to understand because when you're watching it on TV, you've got a camera angle looking everywhere, and you just don't think about.
You can see it all.
Yeah, you can see everything. But when you're sitting down in that car, you can't see past the spoiler of the car in front of you. So that's all your vision is, unless you pull out a line a little bit. But
and it desensitizes the fan.
Right.
I think exactly what you're talking about, and talking, oh, you know, anybody could drive that. Blah, blah. No,
No way.
Not one bit. And what he did, and he is so bent out of shape. When I was talking to him the other day, he's getting ready to come on the show next week, and he was so bent out of shape about the race, you know, because he wanted to do a top 10, and he was there. But
he was there,
and it's just a matter of seconds.
Yeah,
I mean, just one little thing, and it's done.
Yep,
so.
for sure.
I was super impressed with his talents. I mean, he's constantly proving it, right? I mean, he has some incredibly quick hands, and certainly has no fear when it comes to driving a race car.
Or jumping off a building.
Or jumping off without a parachute out of a plane.
You know, whatever you want to do.
We'll take a quick break here. We've got plenty more to go here with Mr. Windom.
I told everybody, because they all wanted to go, and I said, I welcome you all to come, but you all need to put on a seasick patch because I'm not coming back if you guys get sick.
You start rum chumming, you're on your own.
You're on your own. So they did. Luckily nobody got sick, but it was rough.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny. The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach. Innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. Here, you're watching The Skinny. We have Chris Windom on the show with us here today. Stout, Elmore, and the track dude back behind us. By the way, Michael did a little bit of homework on you, from what I understand, as he was talking to Georgia. And rumor has it, are you going to throw a song at him?
Well, I don't. So Chris dates Georgia Henneberry, who I work with in the IndyCar series, and she said, you know more about music and all the days of USAC traveling up and down the road. So there is a song that she and I have a dispute about. Of course, it's the song Life is a Highway. Who sings Life is a Highway?
See, I was going to tell you when you asked me about this. I know lyrics and I can sing almost every song I hear, but I'm not great at telling you artist names of who they all are.
Carl.
But... oh, man. I don't know.
She'll say Rascal Flatts, but it's really Tom Cochran. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom
Cochran. And that Tom Cochran version's out of print.
I know it was way before Rascal Flatts,
right.
So I knew that much.
She'll say it's
she loves Rascal Flatts.
No idea.
It doesn't matter who else sang it. All that matters is...
yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, end of story. That's who it is.
Exactly. That's funny.
So...
And he also, she also says you're pretty good with a fishing lure.
I do. That's what I spend most of my time doing when I'm not racing. I got a bass boat in Nashville on Old Hickory Lake. It stays at my dad's house. He's got a lake house down there. But generally like to try to travel to, we went to Cabo this year and went fishing for marlin in November. So
really?
Generally like to
How
go.
was that?
Any luck?
Yeah, we caught. I think I got a picture of it on my Instagram. But yeah, we only caught one. We were hoping to catch more than one, but one was still fun. So
how big was it?
I think it was probably like 180 pounds. It wasn't a huge one.
Yeah,
but it was,
but still.
That's got to
nice.
be wild, though. My father had caught some of those and just said the fight was unreal.
Yeah, I love it. That's what if I wasn't racing, I'd probably try to start a fishing charter somewhere like that. So yeah, that would that's probably what I'll venture to after I'm done doing this.
We went to Cabo. No, we went to Cancun, and we barely made it out to where they were They were just swimming in the water before everybody was about seasick.
Yeah, I had
Turn it around.
Yeah, we had, I think Tyler Courtney was with us, Freddie Kraft, a couple of my friends from Arizona, Brian Hosford, and I told everybody, because they all wanted to go, and I said, I welcome you all to come, but you all need to put on a seasick patch because I'm not coming back if you guys get sick.
You start rum chumming, you're on your own.
You're on your own. So they did. Luckily, nobody got sick, but it was rough. It can get really rough.
And it's amazing how people don't think that they are until they do.
Everybody thinks, oh, I'll be fine.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fishing thing, that's got to be a little more relaxing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You know, you deal with so much pressure and high intensity all year long racing. When I can get a week or a few days off, I like to go down and just be by myself and go fishing and hang out.
So how far out did you have to go?
There, we didn't really go that far. I think we were maybe 4 or 5 miles out, but I have done a fishing trip with Teddy Beach, who used to race sprint cars.
Oh, yeah. Beach Boys.
He's a wild man, but he's got a boat. He lives in Fort Myers, and Georgia was with me, actually. We took his boat out and went like 65 miles and stayed out in the middle of the ocean all night on a shipwreck, and that was really cool. But
really?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Wow.
All the stuff that because I think he had underwater lights on his boat, and seeing the dolphins and sea turtles and all the different fish that would come up at night was awesome.
Make you think twice about going swimming?
Yeah, I don't think I would have wanted to jump in. But yeah.
Immediate food for something.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they live. I'm not living
that's
there.
right.
I'm not going to bother them.
I don't even want to visit.
Yeah.
They eat the visitors.
Right.
Great stuff, man. It's super cool, like you said, to get away. Sometimes you just need that space, man.
Yep.
The phones aren't working out there, and you just disappear.
Yeah, I've always kind of been that way. When I'm not racing, I like to just kind of get away from it. And I obviously like all my buddies and friends here, but I like to go off and do stuff on my own at the same time.
Cool stuff. Well, you'll be done relaxing here in just a moment. We're going to talk about 2018 out here at the Speedway. It was a rough weekend.
Well, I had Georgia my eyes were all purple and black, and I had Georgia put makeup on me and try to hide it some, because I felt okay, but I just looked terrible. So I went there, and I couldn't believe it, but they cleared me to race, and
They're like, send him.
Yeah. So yeah, then we started that race, and we got through one lap.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We're here in Speedway, Indiana, right down the street from that place known as Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And this guy, Mr. Chris Windom, was out there in 2018. Things didn't go so well, but if I go back to that weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was a disastrous weekend. Then you crashed at the Little 500, Lucas Oil Raceway Park, and the Speedway. Did you crash at all three?
Well, you missed one. I crashed at the Hoosier 100 too. Yeah. Yeah. So.
I was getting ready to say you missed one.
Yeah, that was probably the worst weekend I've ever had. Not probably. It was. Yeah, I was leading the Hoosier 100 at the State Fairgrounds the night before the Indy Lights race.
Grenaded it.
And blew a right rear tire going on the front stretch, and it turned left and snap rolled, and it crashed so hard.
It was it was the scariest Silver Crown race that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The scariest Silver Crown crash I've ever seen in my life. And, being friends with him and knowing him is like,
right-hand turns at that place are not good.
Right, yeah.
And, I mean, it was out of nowhere. Stood up, going down through there, and, I mean, that quick.
Yeah.
Done.
Wow.
So, yeah, I went through that, and by 9 or 10 o'clock that night, I was like, man, I hope nobody sees this. And obviously, because I had to race the next morning, I thought IndyCar wasn't going to let me race. So I was like, man, I don't show this to anybody, or I hope no one sees this. Well, I had gotten a text at like 11 that said you need to be at medical at IndyCar at 7 in the morning because they saw it. And well, I had Georgia my eyes were all purple and black, and I had Georgia put makeup on me and try to hide it some, because I felt okay, but I just looked terrible. So I went there, and I couldn't believe it, but they cleared me to race. And
they're like, send him.
Yeah. So yeah, then we started that race, and we got through one lap and got down into turn 3, and car spun out in front of me, and I ramped straight over the top of him, and we went head on into the fence. And so that was about 12 hours after my last crash, and smashed my head again. And luckily didn't get hurt, though. Everything kept me safe in that. And
I mean, that was another nasty wreck, though.
Yeah.
You said before it was David Malukas. We had him on the show.
Dave,
Great kid. I mean, obviously making big waves now up on the tour. But, yeah, big moment, man.
Yeah, big. You know, I think I kind of high-centered on top of his car, and my tire was in his helmet, and then we both just were head-on into the fence.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that you guys are going 200 miles an hour out there, you know, the Speedway in the lights cars.
Exactly. And then, you know, that obviously happened, and none of this had been planned to happen to begin with, so I had another race, the Little 500, I had to go to that night, and ended up crashing that car too. So
because I was still at the Speedway. You know, I was still at the Speedway, believe it or not, you know, late night. And they had already started the Little 5. And somebody's like, Windom just crashed out of the Little 5. I'm like, no. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way.
How's it possible?
And like I said, always like I said, I truly believe when it's your time, it's your time. And he gave it 4 good opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And it was not his time. By no means,
Pretty
no
crazy.
way, shape, or form was it his time.
So Friday was a double crash day. Thursday was a crash night. Friday, double crash day, or day and night. And then you had Raceway Park on Saturday?
Yeah, and then I kind of get the days. It was tough to remember a lot from that weekend after Monday came around. But yeah, then I think it was after the Little 500, we had a race at Raceway Park in the Silver Crown and blew an engine going into turn 1, laid oil down on the rear tires and smashed the fence in that too. So it was pretty unbelievable. Even to start talking about it again, it's crazy how that all happened.
Man, if you would have had crash clauses on all those,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No
been a
kidding.
big run right
No
there.
kidding.
What a rough weekend, man.
Yeah.
And just funny how it goes sometimes, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So the Little 5, or not Little 5, let me back up. The Indy Lights, I mean, pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it was awesome, honestly. And again, I think I got to test at Kentucky before we ran the Speedway, but just being at the Speedway in a race car, going around that place is so awesome. You know, the first practice.
Was it Bilardi? Is that
yeah,
whose
with
car
Bilardi.
Yeah.
And then obviously David Bird was helping me do everything. The same guy that helped Brian Clausen. And the goal was, the only reason we were doing it was to run the Indy 500. And the first, I actually did it in 18 and 19, I want to say. And the first year I crashed on my own in practice and ended it. So then we went back and did it again, and everything was going great that year until David spun out in front of us. And the goal was to do this, to run the Indy 500 the following year. And just I basically was going to be, if I was able to finish the race and everything was good, I would have been approved to do the Indy 500 the following year and move forward with that. But just with everything that happened, and it obviously wasn't cheap to crash those cars, so it just didn't work out to go back.
Bilardi had there for a long stretch. I mean, he was the car, the team to be involved with.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, and looking back, the first year that you were out there, it was, it was definitely showed that it was the first year that you were out there. But the second year, I mean, you looked good. The car looked good. I mean, it was, and I was like, all right, come on, man.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just wasn't to be.
Yeah, it just wasn't.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side to find out what's going to happen in 2023.
Well, I'm sorry. That wasn't the blindfold one. The blindfold one was when we were out in California and we were driving Camaros, and the guy next to you had to direct you.
Tell you where to.
Yeah, that's right. I had them mixed up. But either way, yeah, they do super cool stuff.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Chris Windom in the studio here. Yep, things go on during commercial break in this studio. So we're giggling. Yes, we're giggling. All right, 2021 second USAC National Midget Points. Mr. Chris Windom in the studio with us. 2022 behind the wheel of a winged car for the All-Stars. More of the same here in 2023?
Yeah, more of the same, just with a new team. I transitioned over to lane racing and looking forward to it. We haven't got to race yet. We skipped Florida because the kind of was a deal that got put together late, and thought it would just be best to get ready and get prepared and start here actually in a couple weeks with those guys. But yeah, I'm going to do the full-time All-Star deal with them. Obviously hit the Knoxville Nationals, the Million, all the big races at Eldora. We're going to start, I think, March 16th and start at some of the Ohio and Pennsylvania tracks to get prepped up for the All-Star season. And I'm actually going to Pennsylvania this weekend to race the Hefner 27 car at Port Royal and Lincoln to get some practice laps in, because I haven't raced yet this year other than Chili Bowl, and that's not normally how it goes for me. So it's a little different of an off season, but it's about to get busy.
Rico touched on it at the top of the show. Tell us about that transition to go from the non-wing and all of those habits developed there into the winged car, and how difficult was it to really start understanding what the car wanted to do?
Yeah, that was probably the most difficult year of my career in a long time.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was tough. You know, I felt like I went into it knowing, not having huge expectations, so that helped. But I still, get frustrated because I'm used to being able to, be up front or win races, and we weren't doing that right off the bat. And I knew it was going to be that way, but, it was tough. I've spent the majority of my career on dirt, laying on the right rear in a midget or sprint car, and, you go in a wing car and you're laying on the left rear. So it's a whole different feeling. And then you throw in the speed factor, how much faster they are, the dirty air, just the competition, everything is the equipment, how much, your equipment has to be top notch everywhere you go. I don't care if you're racing with All-Stars, Outlaws, local tracks in Pennsylvania, those guys have top notch stuff. And if you're just a tick off, you're in jeopardy of missing a show. So
yeah, nobody's going to cheat it on the equipment in that field.
No, I feel like you could get away with that a little more in USAC, and you obviously had to have good equipment to win there too. But it's even all the local guys that don't race full time with All-Stars or Outlaws, they've got just as nice stuff as all those guys. So it's tough competition for sure.
It's just wild. I mean, I know that you'll be there. You're already getting there. I liked Tyler Courtney's transition. I thought it was pretty amazing with him, getting there. You guys are both sponsored by NOS. I like the activation stuff that NOS does with you guys. I saw the commercial where they brought you guys, Sheldon, and I'm not sure some of the other guys because I just barely caught it, but blindfold driving, was that the...
Yeah, they do some cool activation stuff. We're actually heading out to California next week or 2 weeks to do another one that'll be coming up this year. But yeah, they do a super good job at that. We did that blindfold driving where we all were in. I think me, Tyler, I can't remember. I think it was Ryan Bernal was in the bus. We had a bus. They had a bus, a limo, and a bug. And everybody had to pick which one they wanted to be in, and you had to drive. Well, I'm sorry. That wasn't the blindfold one. The blindfold one was when we were out in California and we were driving Camaros, and the guy next to you had to direct you.
Tell you where to turn.
Yeah, that's right. I had them mixed up. But either way, yeah, they do super cool stuff. They bring in a full-on, movie crew and it takes a couple days to do it, and they have some cool finished products. And having a sponsor like that in our world is huge too. I think everyone's seen how big dirt track racing has grown the last couple years, and having people like that helping out is obviously helped growing the sport huge.
And I mean, I hope they don't go anywhere, but I mean, they've got to see the bang for the buck.
I think so. I think that it's benefited them just as much as it's benefited us, because you guys know how loyal dirt track fans are, and there's a lot of them. And when you cross across the country from wing to non-wing to Knoxville or wherever, there's a ton of dirt fans. Knoxville gets, I don't know how many you probably
A town
know.
of 10,000 people turns into 35,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's on fire.
It's wild.
It's on fire.
Yeah.
Quite an inspiration to a lot of people, man. And, younger people that are looking up at you can see people like you making a living at it inside of the world of open wheels and driving on the dirt. And we all know what a passion people like Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and those guys that running Cup. Love it. Love to come back where you guys are. So pretty cool what you've been able to accomplish, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Chris Windom here on The Skinny. Now you know a little bit about him and his career. We'll see you next week.